Welcome to the Lessons from Sports podcast. I'm your host, Wayne Partello. At some point in your career, you had to start a new job. Now, when you start a new job, you've got to make some new friends. You've got to, you're dropping into an environment where you usually don't know a lot of people. Now, let me spin that all up and let's go to an imaginary world. And that new job is with a professional sports team. And in addition to all the new colleagues and coworkers you have in the office side of your business, there's the professional sports side of the business with athletes in a locker room and coaches and all sorts of things happening, which is a completely foreign environment, if you will. Well, that was the reality for me in 2013 as I get dropped into the San Diego Padres. And, when I got here, there were a group of, young players who just adopted me. It was unbelievable. And I was forever grateful to them. And one of those guys is Tyson Ross. Tyson is just an incredible guy. And he, along with several others, Andrew Kashner, Yonder Alonso, who's already been on the podcast, they took me in, and Will Venable's another one, and kind of showed me the ropes of what it took to what was important to them as big leaguers, what mattered to them as we were learning. I was learning from an executive standpoint. We had a new ownership group that was looking to learn what was important to players as they built the infrastructure for what was going to be a successful franchise. Tyson is now retired. He works for the LA Dodgers in their front office, and just an incredible person. I'm really, really, really thankful he took the time to chat with us, and I'm really excited for you to get to hear this conversation. So sit back and enjoy my conversation with Tyson Ross. Okay, now this one's going to be fun because I tell the story often about moving from Miami to San Diego, never working in the front office for a baseball team. And my first year with the team, I got to spend first 6 weeks of spring training actually in Peoria, Arizona with the team, getting to know all the players to figure everything out. One of the key components of that time for me in my career was you, my man, Tyson Ross. Thank you so much for joining us.
Wayne, appreciate you, man. Good to see you.
It's so great. That time for me was so crazy because guys like you, Kashner, and AJ Hinch, who was in the front office, kind of took me under your wings to be like, all right, dude, this is how baseball works. Don't screw this up. Do this, do that. But you guys were super helpful and really gave us, as we were trying to build the Padres organization, what was important to the players, because there were things that the organization wasn't doing right that we learned a lot from you guys of things that we could be doing so much better. I used to get lots of text messages. So, hey, we could do this. And ownership dropped me in spring training. But your leadership and your continued leadership, watching you through life, I've just been a huge fan, and I'm excited because I know you have so much to just share after your playing career.
No, I appreciate it, man. I can't imagine how tough that must have been for you to just walk into a big league clubhouse just day one and try and figure it out. But you guys did a tremendous job.
Thank you. I remember they were like, yeah, so you're going to talk to the team tomorrow. I'm like, wait, the big league team? You want me to go in there? I'm going in there. And they're like, yep. And I forget who asked the question, but I told my background because they really wanted me to express that I wasn't the standard front office person being dropped in. I had a different background and that we were going to do things differently. When I said that I was a former on-air personality, and somebody in the back of the room was like, what was your on-air name? And
great name too, by the way. Yeah.
when I came out and said that it was the Big Bamboo, that was it. I had a nickname and it was off and running in the clubhouse.
No, it was perfect because we all knew exactly who you were from that day on. There's so many people that come in and they say, blah, 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 blah. I do this and that. And then you kind of see him in passing, but you don't have anything to remember him by. But we all remember Big Bamboo. And it was great to have you part of the team after that. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, dude. It was so fun. It was a really, really unique opportunity and ownership and leadership saying, we want you to live at spring training for 6 weeks and go figure it out and talk to the players. This is only going to work if we start to tell player stories, right? Prior ownership had decided not to market players in San Diego because, they were moving players in and out so often. And Ron Fowler sat me down and said, as long as they're wearing a Padres uniform, they're Padres and we should be celebrating them and telling the story and watching the transformation of that clubhouse. And you were there for a big chunk of those transformative years, which were not easy, by the way. I know it wasn't easy for you guys on the field. It wasn't easy for us trying to sell tickets either, but it was amazing to watch what was happening in the bond that you guys all created in that clubhouse.
Yeah, I mean those years are pretty crazy looking back on it, just seeing where the team was to what they are now. And it started with putting in a new scoreboard, bringing you in, bringing in, it was Matt, right, from
Yep, Matt
Texas.
Coy.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, Matt was doing his thing. All of a sudden we had an environment, and then they started signing the players, and now San Diego is the beast that it is today. And everyone says like I knew as a player that was the best place to play in baseball, but now it
Yeah.
sounds like the whole experience for the fans, for the players, for everybody, it's like that's kind of the standard, which is pretty cool.
It is pretty wild. I mean, what was crazy is people, when we were doing it, fans would say, hey, we need you to commit to payroll. You got to commit to payroll. And ownership was like, it's two different tracks. And like, it's one bucket of money, but in reality, it's like, you have to create that experience first. And I remember Ron sitting me down and say, hey, we're going to give you all the advertising money you need when the time is right. But we don't want to invite people to our house unless the house is ready for the show. And like, you've got to get it ready. And I'll never forget, it was actually a pretty cool moment. It was Chase Headley, that first opening day, Cashner pitched. I have like a plaque. It's in my office, and it's like somebody made it, and it was like, congrats on your first opening day. And it's this picture of Andrew on the mound. And it was pretty cool because like we had done it. But I remember walking back to my car, and Chase was walking his car, and he was the veteran guy. He'd been around and like seen some things, and he grabbed Mike D, who was my boss, and was like, hey, sometimes it's bullshit when you drop these guys on us. He's like, this is real. We can see the difference. We felt the difference. And I was like, oh my God, like that was just cool, man. Like, like it was the moment where, cause 6 weeks spending time with guys going, no, we're going to make it better. We're going to make it better. And then the first one, it better be better. It better be. But it was, it was really fun through those years. I mean, so when you were in San Diego, where were you living? Did you live downtown?
I got a taste of the whole city. I lived downtown, left field legend building my first year, which was great. Walked to the ballpark, found all the little spots in downtown, in the gas lamp that were my go-tos, and then moved up, lived by the beach in Windansea. That was a little hidden gem. I loved it there. If I could have bought that place, I definitely would have.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was good living right there.
Because there was a bunch of guys that lived up there, right?
Yeah, Cass was close. We were all Windansea, PB, La Jolla, right up that little stretch right there. Yeah. And then I lived up on Mount Soledad for a couple of years. Nice little view. Yeah, enjoyed my time there. And then when I came back in 2018, I lived down in Coronado.
Okay.
Got all over the place. Yeah, San Diego.
Yeah, there was a bunch of guys, and Craig Stamen and those guys were all big Coronado guys as well. Like, great place to sort of like, Coronado's special, man. That's just it's pretty wild. Yeah, it's great. Did you from your playing career, so you played for a lot of teams throughout your career, but the majority of your chunk was here, right? Oakland and then here, right?
Yep. Most of it San Diego. Started at Oakland, first couple of years up and down. Yeah.
And one of my, very few siblings make it to the big leagues. Like that's a pretty cool part of your story is your younger brother, who was actually in the org at one point, right? Like he was coming up. You guys were in the same organization. Like that must've been pretty cool.
Yeah, no, it was incredible. He was drafted by San Diego out of high school as a first rounder, was making his way up the ranks. And then I got traded over from Oakland to San Diego in 2012 after the season. And it was a funny moment where we're living together in the off season. I'm making breakfast. I get a phone call at like 8 a.m. and it's Josh Burns saying, hey, we just acquired you from the A's. Like excited to have you in San Diego. Like, I'll let you tell your brother. And so he comes up sleepy eyed and I'm like, hey, we're teammates now. And he's just kind of like, what are you talking about? But yeah, we never got to play in the big leagues together. We had a spring training in big league camp, which was cool. And then just a lot of shared memories through the game, which is amazing.
Yeah. Baseball, it's different, man. Like I try to explain this to folks. It's the grind of it, I think, creates bonds that are just very different. And even for front office folks and spending time with the players, it's like you start to build that relationship. I had Yonder on here as well. And like similar stories, right? From that same time, like you guys were, because I came from Miami, Yonder was very quick to be like, hey man, we got you. Like, come on, like tell us what you need and we'll tell you what we need. Like we got to help each other. And, he talked about the family room and the transformation of like how the team used to treat the players' families to what they were going to build. And that's a story I love because it was not fan facing and we couldn't even talk about it. We didn't want to say that we didn't treat the players' families great before. Like Ron
Mhm.
was like, we don't need to talk about the past. We just need to do better in the future because, like you just said, we want players and across the game going, hey, San Diego's a place you want to play, because before it was a place where some of these veteran guys were known to come here and retire, right?
Yep.
Like get a couple more years under the belt. And he wanted to change that mentality. And that was the beginning of it, was like, you got to start treating people well and celebrating them and telling those stories. But I know, through your career, you must have seen a lot of different organizations and different sort of levels of player involvement and participation, and the way that you're treated as a player.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, every organization's different, and I think the ones that succeed are the ones that put the players first and the people first. And I mean, anywhere I've been where they have good people around, it's usually a good situation. And when you're a good situation, you play better, you feel better, your family's happier, and it all kind of comes together. So it's cool to see when teams, are active and riding the ship and really putting the player first. And I mean, it just shows in the talent on the field, the production, and just the smile on people's faces.
I love that, uh, following along your post playing career of like all that you're doing to give back. Like, I know you're in dad mode and that's amazing. And it's like the coolest part of watching guys that you really enjoyed spending time with, to see them transition into like really the things that you could see that was going to matter to them later in life. Cause I knew you when you were in your 20s, right? Like you're a
Yeah.
young man, like, but you could just see really smart, really thoughtful, like caring. You really wanted to, like, we did community events. You were there. Like that was something you always made the time. But talk to us a little bit about what you're doing now and how you're making an impact in your community.
Yeah. So during COVID was kind of the tail end of my career, and I started a program to give back to the local community here in the Bay Area called Loyal to My Soil. We host free camps, baseball, softball, donate equipment, host educational workshops, things like that for kids in the community, and really just try and grow the game and build community through sport. And it's been a wild ride trying to figure it out. Like I said, I've been to 13 spring trainings. I had no idea how to run a camp and stumbled through the first couple ones, but figure it out. And now we're doing, you know, 5 to 7 camps a year of 150 kids. Everything's free.
Wow.
Bringing out current and former players, pairing with, or partnering with college teams. We went to Cal Berkeley a couple weeks
I
ago.
saw
Had
that.
had 40 kids from the team out there, and then we're going to go back in the spring and bring all those kids back and take them to a game. So really just trying to integrate, the community, the different, levels of high school players, college players, kids, and just make everyone tight in the game and have a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah. The witnessing players, big league players that are now doing these types of things. Like I've had an opportunity to chat with some of the guys from like the Players Alliance, right? That have
Hmm.
just taken on this cause. We're going to make a difference. We're going to change, who plays baseball, how we play baseball, the celebration of baseball. And watching the way baseball has evolved over the last, I would say, 10 years, the traditionalism that was there when I know when I arrived in the game, and to what we're seeing now. I mean, how do you feel about the transition and the evolution of the game and just the atmosphere that's being created today?
I mean, you got to make it fun. That's why we all started playing. We were kids and it was fun. And as you kind of rose through the ranks, all of a sudden it became really buttoned up and kind of that old school mentality, which old school baseball, like playing the game the right way, I still love it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you got to let people express themselves. You got to let people have fun, especially as they're growing with the game. So it's, allowing people to be themselves and play the game right and respect the game, I think is really important. But yeah, I love what we got going on right now. There's a lot more enthusiasm in what's happening out there. It used to be, like how far can you not hit this home run and not crack a smile as I'm running around the bases? And so it's like, now people can celebrate the wins, and I think that's really important in life. It's like, life's tough, the game's tough. Like when you do something well, you can celebrate it, respectfully, but
Yeah.
still like enjoy your achievement and celebrate with your teammates.
And this is a highlight society, right?
Yeah,
Like this is everything's consumed in 6-second clips here. So like those moments are what propels games, right? Like
yeah.
we watched the NBA do it for 15 years, right? Like highlight on highlight on highlight. And
Mm.
there's some incredible highlights in basketball, but there's incredible highlights in baseball too. But the game was suppressing the emotion, and now you're seeing it come out. And I love it. I love seeing the energy. And to your point, I love you got to do it respectfully, right? Like I love when the bat flip and everybody, and they turn and look at their dugout,
Yeah,
versus pimping it on the pitcher, and the pitcher but and I've heard players say, well, then I should have made a better pitch, or, like
that's a
you
fact.
know, that's it, right?
Yeah.
It's like, it's a one-on-one competition at that point. And,
Hmm.
you beat me, I'll get you next time. And I,
That's it. Yeah.
and so when you're now with the kids, right? So, you know, you guys are giving back and growing the game at the youth level. What do you say to kids when they're, because my favorite part about the big leagues is you're emulating that as a kid, right? Like, how are the kids now when you're seeing them play? Are they looking to like kind of strut that home run, or the pitchers showing more emotion on the mound? Are you seeing
Oh,
more of that from the kids?
the kids are swagged out. They got all the sliding mitts and eye black and sunglasses on the hat and everything you could have, all the accessories. But the biggest thing I kind of really harp on is like just keep having fun and just play with enthusiasm. It doesn't matter how good you look; it just matters how hard you play and have fun doing it.
Yeah, it's a great. I mean, the when I was a kid, I'm much older than you are, but like I grew up in Boston, and we used to pretend we were at Fenway Park every day, right? And you're
Mhm.
playing the game, but you were trying to make the plays that those guys now see. I didn't even think about sliding gloves and all the
It's crazy.
swag. It's great though. And it's good for the game, right? To
Mm.
see, this next generation actually excited about baseball and excited about the energy that comes around the game. That fires me up. What's something, the whole concept of this podcast is a lesson from sports. You're teaching those lessons all the time at all these camps, and I'm sure in life for you now. What's a lesson from sports for you that you've taken away from probably the game of baseball that you've transitioned into, your off the field life that has really made a difference?
I think just understanding the impact that we can make on a daily basis. Just something as small as a small gesture, holding the door open, a small thoughtful gift, things like that go a really long ways, especially when, you don't know what situation that other person may be in at that time when you do it for them. And I kind of have a random story about it, but
Yeah.
I remember being a kid, I went to the San Diego School of Baseball for a week over Christmas break. I'm down there, I'm 12 years old, having fun playing at Palomar College. And Eric Chavez's brother Casey was one of the guest instructors. So I'm doing a drill. I must have done it right. And he said, "Hey, buddy, like, great job. Here's some batting gloves for my brother Eric. He plays for the A's." He didn't know I grew up in Oakland. He didn't know Eric was one of my
Oh,
favorite
wow.
players, but he gifted that to me, and it was like one of the cherished things I had as a kid. Kept it in my bedroom. Fast forward to high school, dating a girl. We're freshmen, so her mom comes to pick her up, and her brother's in the back seat of the car crying. And I'm like, "What's wrong with Bobby?" And the mom's like, "Oh, we were at the A's game. He almost caught a foul ball from Eric Chavez, but some man ripped it out of his hands, and so he's all upset about it." And I was like, "Oh, okay, hold on." And I go inside, get those batting gloves, bring it to the kid, and say, "Hey, you didn't get the ball, but here's Eric Chavez's batting gloves. His brother gave it to me, back in the
Oh,
day or whatever, right?"
wow.
And so then fast forward one more time, I'm a rookie in 2010. Casey's the bullpen catcher. Eric's still the third baseman. And I'm just in awe of the whole situation, right? And I told Casey the story. I didn't bother Eric with it, but
Yeah.
you don't understand like how big of a small gesture can be down the line, and what an impact it can make in multiple lives. So giving back, doing little things for people, taking care of people in daily life, like it goes a long ways.
I love that. And it sums you up so well that would be the lesson that you shared. Like it is, but give to others. I mean, I think
Yeah.
that was one of the things that it took me a little bit when I got to the Padres to kind of figure it out. And we were going through some tough years. So the backlash from fans was tough. And I'm a problem solver by nature. So I would attack trying to solve that problem. Right. And I realized at a certain point, there was just at a certain that you weren't going to solve everybody's problem. So we transitioned to, hey, how many amazing moments could we create in a baseball season, right? Like, let's turn
That's
all that
cool.
attention that we were trying to solve these people's problems, and let's
Mhm.
just create magical moments for as many kids as possible. Let's just go back to what makes this special, and challenging every employee in my team to every homestand, pick one family and bring them on the field. Back when you could do that. But
Yeah.
but that was again, right? Because you were like, if that one kid meets that one player, that's once in a life. Never got that. I mean, like you
Hmm.
didn't get that. You got a batting glove from a guy like you three
Yeah.
levels down, and that mattered to you. Like that I love. I mean, that's it. And in everyday life, it doesn't have to be meeting a Major League Baseball player. To your point, it's opening that door for somebody, taking the extra second to ask them how their weekend was, or,
Mm.
actually caring. I had a guy who called me and used to work for me. It's a great line. And he worked at a different company. And he said, "Hey," they used to call me boss. He said, "Hey boss, I, you never told me you loved me." I'm like, "What? What are you talking about?" He's like, "You never told me you loved me." I'm like, "Okay, I love you. What do you want?" Like, what? He goes, "No. I always knew you loved me." He's like, "I always knew you cared. I always knew these things, but you never said it." He's like, "I went to work for this company and they just want me to like, they just like, they're asking me my favorite color and these things. And I know like they're just very surface level." And he's like, "They
Mm.
want me to believe it, but it's not genuine." And he was like, "There's just that." But to your point, it's like you have to actually care for people to believe you care. You can't fake that stuff. Like it doesn't work if it's a facade to make an impact on somebody. You have to genuinely give a shit.
Oh
Like
yeah.
it's like, and but like, so when you guys, so how do you go from like when do you get to pick, you go out, reach out to your community to bring in coaches, and like, how do you hype them up to want to be a part of what you're building now?
Yeah, it's all volunteer based. Luckily, I grew up here. I've got pretty deep roots in the baseball community, and so I just
Yeah.
basically lean on my baseball family. People I played with, people I played against,
Yep.
former coaches, sons of coaches, everyone and everyone. I went back to my little league in East Oakland, and I had people that I hadn't seen in 15 years that we grew up playing together. And I
Oh,
was like,
wow.
"Omar, get out here! Like, Big Mike,
Yeah.
let's go!" And they were like, "Yeah, I'm in." And people were out there like, "I haven't put a glove on in 10 years," and I'm like, "Cool, use mine. Go do infield." Like it's the same thing. Just have fun with the kids, and like it's
Yeah.
pretty cool because like the bond that we have, that's a shared experience from playing the game as a kid to lasting through lifetimes, as now we're adults, we've got our own kids, and now it's our turn to give back. It's been pretty special to bring people together and see the enthusiasm in which people say, "Yeah, I got 3 hours on a Sunday for you guys and for the kids." And I mean, that's what made baseball so special. It's like our dads, our uncles,
No
people in the
doubt.
community were working their jobs and busting butt over to the field so you could have practice, and now it's our turn to do that. And not only just for our kids, but that was what made it special. Was my dad was dropping kids off, picking them up.
Yep.
The kid didn't have a glove, he was taking care of them. And so I think just having that social responsibility of taking care of others is something that's super needed, especially at this time.
Yeah, and as much as your dad coaching you is special, there is something about that other guy taking an interest in putting the time in. And I coached little league from the age of, I think I was 15 when I started, up
Mm.
and through like 21, I think I was, and with a bunch of buddies. And I wasn't a great baseball player, but I loved the game, and I was a catcher, so I understood the game. I just couldn't hit, so it didn't work for me. But like, man, it is what it is. But I love being around the game, but wild, right? You talked about, during COVID, this all happened for you. I was preparing to leave my job during COVID, and, was posting more socially, kind of getting the ball rolling. And two of the kids I coached in Little League, gosh, 20 years, whatever it was, 20 something years ago, reached out, and I actually ended up started mentoring those guys
Nice.
later through their
Yeah.
careers. And one of them made a huge career life shift. He wanted to move. He was living in New Hampshire, wanted to move to Florida. We started the process in 2020. And by 2022, he and his family, because his kid, you and I were just talking about, I moved my kids when they were like this, under 5. And that's where he was. And he was like, "I got to do it by this window." And
Mm.
I'll never forget, he sent me a picture of him and his family in front of his new house. And he's like, "We pulled it off, man." I'm like, "We didn't pull anything off. You pulled it off." But it was those bonds and those relationships, that it was this person that's, sometimes having that family person there is great, but somebody who played big league baseball taking an interest to like help, I think is just amazing and special. I love it, dude. I love watching you do it. It gets me all fired up because I know how important it is to those kids. So it's great. All right. Number two, the second thing we do here is the hot seat. Rapid fire
Mm.
questions, fun, some real ones, some fun ones, but like we've all been on the hot seat. We've had that bad day and the press is calling for our jobs. So this is
I've
the
had
fun
plenty of
part.
those, man. Yeah, let's go.
Buddy, those are the fun days. I love those days. It's what we do. All right. Best coach you ever had.
Darren Balsley, hands down. Pitching coach in
Amazing.
San Diego. Yeah, he's a legend.
He is, he didn't talk to me for probably my first year and a half with the pod. I built all these relationships with all you got. Not Bosley. And then
Mm.
finally we were sitting at the Moon Saloon and I'm
You earned
having
it
a
then,
beer.
yeah.
And he just started talking to me one day and he was just like, oh no, I've been watching. You're doing a great job. But you had to earn that respect from Balls.
100%. Yeah, he's the best.
I have a fun story. And I try to get a jersey from every kind of era of my time at the Padres. And from that era, mine is a Darren Balsley jersey. Because
3-6, yeah.
Yeah, because it was I really wanted it. It was my first year at the Padres. We unfortunately had to do we had a patch for Jerry Coleman and Tony Gwynn on that jersey. It was a double patch jersey, which is and I was going looking for one. I wanted to grab one. And they had a Darren Balsley. I'm like, actually, that's pretty significant because he was the guy behind the scenes doing like magical things with you guys. That's awesome. He was and he would just roll into camp, like, and then he was all in when he was there, man, fully committed.
Yeah, he's the best. That's all I can say. I still keep in contact with him, and it's great. It's great to just keep tabs with people. But Balsley, what he did for my career and so many others, and just the person he was above and beyond. Yeah.
Yeah, it was cool talking to pitchers who were like, this guy changes you. Like and you could see it. Like it was amazing. I love that. Highlight visual moment for you from your career. What's the one that just stands out highest?
Man, that's tough. One of the cooler moments that's really unique is I got to watch my brother debut in 2015. So it was like kind of the stars aligned. He got called up. He got traded over to the Nationals after the 2014 season. I think that's how we got Will Myers to San Diego.
Yep.
And I think Mike D might have even reached out and was like, hey, sorry about trading your brother. I think this is good for the organization. I was like, dude, don't worry. Joe can't hit. Like Will can hit. Joe can't hit. We don't score runs. Like get him in here. This is all good. But it all worked out for both of us because in 2015 he was with Washington. I think he was in Double-A. Steven Strasburg got injured and they called him up. And so he knew a couple days ahead of time he was going to start. And I think somehow the word got over to the Padres and it just, everything lined up perfectly where I pitched a night game in Cincinnati and he was debuting in Washington the next day. And that morning before my start, Bud Black called me in the office and he goes, hey, Tyson, like since he's good, blah, blah, blah. But I know there's something really important tomorrow. So handle your business tonight. We got you a flight. Get over to DC, watch your brother pitch, and haul your butt back here, get back for our game. And I was like, done. And so that was probably one of the most nervous I've ever been just in a situation. Like I'm pitching against the Reds that night. I think Joey Votto was still there. Brandon Phillips. They had Jay Bruce legit lineup. And I'm sitting there nervous for my little brother who's pitching the next day. And I think I threw well enough, like, maybe we won, maybe we didn't, but it wasn't considering how out of my head I was, or in my head I was, like I had a good enough game, got on a plane at like 6 a.m, flew straight to DC. It was like a noon start. I remember walking through the gates, like, with the crowd. I hadn't done that in 10 years. And I'm just like, why is there a metal detector? What am I doing? Like, what's happening right now? And he was facing the Cubs, who were really good at that time. That was, the year before they won the World Series. So they were loaded. And I'd pitched against them a couple weeks before, so I'm like nervous. I'm like, all right, Dexter Fowler's a great leadoff hitter. Then you got Rizzo, then you got Baez, and you got Schwarber, and I'm like, this could go ugly real quick. And my brother's 22, and he handled it well through like 5 innings, and so that was one of my best moments in baseball because I was sitting there with my parents and my wife and watching little brother, in a huge moment in his life. I missed a lot of things growing up for him because I was off playing college or in the minors and. I saw him pitch a couple times as a senior in high school, but that was the first time I saw him as a pro other than spring training. And it was really special.
That's awesome. Again, I know I'm blowing smoke up your ass, but I love the fact that your favorite moment was actually somebody else's moment. Like it's the best. And I just remember, I do remember that moment of him getting called because it was a cool moment across the board. When you're in the front office, something that people may not know is you also get attached to these kids. Like for us, we're telling their stories. So like we're going out and meeting these kids. We're spending time with them in spring training. We're interviewing them. So you get invested in their careers. Like there's still guys playing that, that we were doing coaching sessions with them on social media and brand and all these things. So you get to know them. So when they make their big league debuts, even when it's not with your team, you're vested. But it was your brother, which was like this double moment. We all watched it. I remember it so clearly. It's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. Did you ever have a job off the field that growing up or whatever? Like, what's the worst job you had off the field?
I haven't had too many jobs in my life. In high school, I did work at a Raiders clothing store. So senior year, me and my best friend, I don't know why they hired us because we were highly irresponsible, but yeah, we worked at a Oakland Raiders clothing store. So we sold jerseys, hats,
That's
barbecue
hilarious.
kits, anything you could put a Raiders logo on, we were selling it. And so it was cool. We were pretty smart. We figured out if we worked Sundays on game days, there'd be a little rush in the morning of people trying to get their gear. And then once the game was on, no one was shopping for an extra jersey at halftime, right? And so we were just sitting in there. We'd watch the game on TV and just kind of have a chill afternoon.
That's awesome. I love it. Figuring it out. What's your favorite vacation spot?
Oh man, I like to go on adventures. I went to New Zealand back in
Oh, wow.
was that 2018, 2019? Yeah. That was an incredible journey. Going down there, doing some cool things.
Yeah.
And then with the kids now, it's like Hawaii. Just to get them out on the beach, let them dig in the sand and splash in the waves. Yeah, that's an easy one. But I like to go out and explore a little bit.
Challenge it. I love it. Favorite food?
Oh man, a good steak, hard to beat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who's the person you text with the most?
Definitely my wife.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All day.
But I'll tell you one that you'll appreciate it. It's few and far between, but when me and Cash get going back and forth, I love it.
I got to talk to Cash. I got to get Cash on here.
Yeah.
Cash was one of the most, like, he would text like crazy because ownership had said, hey, anything we're not doing right, you got to tell us. We don't know. We've never owned a Major League Baseball. Like Ron and Peter were very honest, and Cash was like, oh, I got you.
Yeah. I've been keeping a list. Trust me. Yeah. I love Cash, man. That's my brother from another mother right there.
You guys wanted the salt tanks.
Yeah.
And the three of us went to the salt tanks one night.
Yeah. The little down in the basement.
Yes. They hadn't even opened
my man
yet.
Fred. Yeah.
Yeah. I think they have one now, by the way.
Hey man, there's something to it.
No, that was amazing. That was the best sleep of my life was that night after we went to like that'll clear you out. Favorite TV show you watched this year?
Oh man, this year I just watched The Penguin. That was fantastic. 10 out of 10.
Is it good?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's on my list. I've
seen a ton of cartoons with the kids, but I actually carved out a little bit of time to watch something good. And The Penguin, I would highly recommend that one.
Love it. Favorite ballpark you ever played in?
San Diego.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was just home. I mean, it was great. Perfect time in my career, perfect weather. There's something magical about being in the National League at that time and hitting on-field BP in your home stadium, and you're sitting there. It's like 70 degrees. Just hanging out with Cash and Ian Kennedy and Shields and all those guys that we had, and we just had this little time of the field. We had this immaculate stadium to ourselves and just having a good time out there trying to hit some homers. It was cool.
It is one of the hidden secrets of working in a game is standing in those places with nobody there.
Yeah,
it is one of. I hadn't really thought about it in a lot of it until you just said that, but I would go out and just sit there and just be like, I can't believe you guys are playing like ultimate frisbee or like different games out in the out. And I'm like, this is a pretty cool way to spend a day.
Oh yeah. And the best part is, at 7:00, like that place is going to come alive too. So it's like you get the calm before the storm, and then you get the, the battle of game time, which is, that's the beauty of baseball. You never know what's going to happen. You never see, every day you may see something you've never seen before. And it's pretty fascinating if you can pay attention and find those little details that, most people go unnoticed, but special game.
It is in the intricacies of it. And as you learn more and more and more about it, like getting to spend time with you guys and figure out what you're actually thinking about, it changes the way you watch the game of baseball. And it's, it was really, really, really fun. Okay. Last rapid fire question. They weren't as rapid, but they were good. But so favorite story from the minors?
Oh, okay. Let's see. So we played a game my first half season. I was drafted by Oakland. I went out to Kane County. We were playing against the Peoria Chiefs, which was the Cubs affiliate. And for
Okay.
whatever reason, Ryan Sandberg was managing, and they decided we're going to play a game at Wrigley. So we go to Wrigley Field. It's a night game at Wrigley, which is unheard of back then.
Right.
30,000 people for a low A game. And it was just like this epic, like, I was in college like 2 months before, and now I'm at Wrigley Field playing against like all the Cubs top prospects. And it was just like this epic game that we had. And afterwards, terrible idea, but the ownership of our franchise took us to Harry Carey's, had an open bar for a couple hours, and then
No
we
way.
bus ride through the night for a couple more hours, just the longest day ever. We had high school players that were, never had the college experience, couldn't hold their liquor, and
Oh
throwing up on the
no.
bus, like pulling over, everyone's peeing in cornfields. It's just one of those days where you're just like, at the time you're like, it was chaos, and looking back on it, it's like those are those special moments in the minor leagues that you'll never get to replicate, and it was just really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I, I had, the reason why I asked the question is I was somewhere and player was talking about moonshine
Mm.
and I forget, it might have been, it was like a Latin guy. And he was like, dude, like, you don't understand. He's like, we have like moonshine guys. And I'm like, what? He's like, oh yeah, I got a guy in this place. And I'm like,
Mm.
he's like, those long bus. I had never really thought about it. They're like, yeah, you create, your own parties on the bus and have fun. And it was pretty funny to like learn the different, like how much those bus rides and all the craziness of, that lifestyle is so, and then to transition, you're in the big leagues and it's like a completely different world,
Oh yeah.
getting on private planes and doing it up. So, okay. Last part and fourth, providing value. So the whole reason I did this is I came up a very different path than most, right, to get to where I was, and the access to people was just really difficult. So I love being able to provide access to like Tyson Ross to somebody who may be trying to or their kids may be athletes, So this is just giving that advice. So what advice do you give somebody who says, "Hey Tyson, I want to be, I want to become a professional athlete, or my kid is, whatever." What do you tell those people?
Uh, Definitely go all in, and go all in with passion. I think, people are always cautious. They look at all the reasons why you can't do something. And all you got to do is just keep finding why you can. And if there's something you're not good at, let's pivot, let's adjust, let's find a way to make it better. But just go for it. I mean, you only got one life to live. Like, why sell yourself short? I had plenty of people when I was a kid, little kid, like, I want to play baseball, I want to pitch for the A's, and they're like, do you know how hard that is? I'm like, no, I have no idea, but like, that's what I want to do. And so, it somehow came true, but just go for it.
How
Be
old were
smart.
you? Yeah, how old were you when like that you separated from like the pack? Because every you had to be, there's a moment where that happens.
Yeah, it's funny because the best way I can explain it is I was always, in my mind, I was like the worst player on the really good team,
Right.
right? So like I played travel ball, and I played with like Brandon Crawford and Jason Castro and Brett Wallace, all these guys who were like highly touted
Yeah.
players, and they had great careers as well. And like I felt like I was like the 25th man on that roster. And then in high school, I played on a couple like Team USA's with like Buster Posey and Clayton Kershaw and Andrew McCutcheon and Justin Upton, and I was like the last man on that roster, right? So like I was always somehow around people that were incredible, and I didn't realize how good I was until later in college, when I started to separate myself a little bit, maybe as like a sophomore.
When you came out of high school, you went the college route. What was what was that decision process like for you?
Fairly easy. I played some travel ball. That was the early days of travel ball. So I got to play in Florida and
Yep.
Oklahoma and Texas and Atlanta, and see different parts of the country. And coming from California, coming from the Bay Area, it's super diverse community. Being mixed myself, I never felt quite comfortable in all these other places. People kind of looked at me,
Interesting.
couldn't quite figure out who I was, what I was. You know what I mean? So for me, it was kind of like, all right, West Coast bias. We had really good baseball in California at the time, and then my
Yep.
mom went to Cal, so I
Oh,
grew up
cool.
going to Cal sports camps, Cal baseball camps. I had my 12th birthday at Cal. Coach Esker, it was one of the early days of him. I have pictures of him coming over and shaking my hand when I was a little kid, at a
That's
birthday
awesome.
party and before a game, and then a couple years later, he ended up being my head coach at Berkeley. So
Nice.
staying close to home is easy too. I was the oldest of three, and so
Yep.
I didn't want to, go off to college and be gone forever. I was just down the street,
Yep.
and it worked out well.
That's great. Would you change anything about your career?
I could have stayed healthy in San Diego. That's the only thing, and not for a lack of trying. I did
Yeah.
everything possible. Like if I could have one more hour in the day, maybe I could have found the right rehab that might have got my shoulder right at that time.
Yep.
But overall, I was lucky to have all the experiences, good and bad, that I did, and met some
Yeah.
great people along the way. And I think, more than anything, that was just the thing that was really cool. It's like the people you get to meet in the game, like yourself, like Katie, um, different departments, different roles, but understanding like how big the game is and how much goes into that big league experience for everyone, players, staff, fans. It's a pretty cool thing to understand how big that machine is.
It is not every player takes that opportunity to get to know the other folks. And I agree with you. I think teams are sometimes set up where most of the front office don't get the opportunity to interact with the players, right? And the players don't. I think the teams that do that well are the ones that find the most success. I think because the humans find a way to help each other, because we're all the people in the front office are the biggest fans. Like they want it more than anybody else in the community because you're living and breathing it every day. And you're right. I mean, when you get to know the people, like you're not just cheering for your team anymore. You're cheering for that person. Like
Yeah.
people ask me all the time, like, "Oh, are you still a Padres fan?" I'm like, "Of course I'm still a Padres." There's so many people in that organization that like I personally have vested in. Like I want them to win. Like, by the way, I have friends that now have spread out to a lot of organizations. So when the
Mm-hmm.
Texas Rangers were in the World Series, I was cheering like heck for the Texas Rangers because there's some amazing people who have gone there as well, and you're cheering for those people. And I think that's the biggest challenge. So I wrap up every podcast with the same question because I love ending on a positive note. And like, what's the best part of your day now?
Best part of my day is the piggyback rides I give my kids. And it's tough because I got two boys that are fighting over like, I want to piggyback, I want to piggyback. But yeah, I don't know how much longer I can carry both of them at once, but that's pretty cool because I was thinking about it the other day. I know there's going to be a time, and I'm not going to know when it is, but it'll be that last piggyback ride that they request, and hopefully it's not for a long time. But that it's pretty special, man. Just have these little versions of you run around creating chaos and brightening your day.
We do family photos every year. And every year, so I have a freshman in high school and a sixth grader. And every year in the family photos, I pick up both of them still. And but to your exact point, my
Yeah,
wife's like, "That's crazy." I go, "One point, I'm not gonna be able to do it, and
yeah,
until that time, I'm gonna at least try it. I'm gonna try it every year
yeah.
because it's my favorite picture we take every year. Is just to your those miniature versions of you, and you're like, I
Hmm.
just want to take that moment, and like it's pretty cool, and it's a different that transition of life of like now you're passing it on to them and seeing them, you know, learn the things that you learned, and I love that, man. Tyson, thank you so much for taking time to join us and share. I'm, I love watching what you're doing now and seeing all the give back that you're doing. And if we can help in any way, please don't hesitate. We are huge fans of you and huge fans of your family and everything that you did when you were in this community, and now seeing what you're doing now that you're back home and giving back to the community in which you grew up in. So thank you. Continued success, continued happiness, continued piggyback rides for you as you go forward. Thank you, my friend.
Hey, love you, Big Bamboo. Anytime, man. Appreciate it.